Welcome everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and this time we are talking about how Nintendo has actually been strongly hinting at Switch 2 sometime next year, the year 2024. And what I find interesting about this is that a lot of this information is coming from Nintendo's financial briefing that we saw the details from last week, but last week I noticed an influx of people and conversations about Switch 2 not happening next year. So it's just interesting how a lot of this information has come out and people have interpreted things differently. And after having taken some time to look over all the information, look at the Q&As, all the charts, I feel I can say pretty confidently that actually they pretty much strongly hinted or softly confirmed that they have to do something next year. And that's what we're talking about today. But before going forward, let me point out that we are aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers. So if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the notification bell, and enjoy the ride as we talk about Nintendo every day. So what I want to do for this video is literally walk you through why people think Switch 2 isn't coming out in 2024 first, at least in terms of the data that came out last week, and then I'll go over all the data that supports Switch 2 coming out next year. This video isn't about the rumors, this video isn't about the Nvidia leak, this video isn't about the legal documentation talking about the next generation Switch. This is just talking about the data from the financial briefing and how it supports Switch 2 for next year, but also considering the other perspective that it might not come out this year, even though I disagree. So I'm going to read you this excerpt from this Japanese publication Mainichi that revealed some details said by President Shuntaro Furukawa. President Furukawa pointed out, rumors are circulating mainly on the internet as if they were public information, but they are inaccurate. He cited reports that Nintendo provided explanations about the next generation consoles to specific software makers in 2022, and that Nintendo demonstrated a new model at an overseas event in the summer of 2023, denying them as untrue. So it's this piece of information here that a lot of people have been looking at and saying, well, if the president of Nintendo at a financial briefing where he has to be totally honest is saying that the rumors of Switch 2 are untrue, then they are untrue, and this talk of Switch 2 in 2024 is just not happening. But the thing is, he's not saying Switch 2 isn't coming out in 2024. He's not saying they don't have plans for a successor in 2024. He's saying rumors circulating on the internet are inaccurate, and he's saying reports of an overseas event where there is a new model shown off is also untrue. And the fact of the matter is, the reports that we've been paying attention to, there was no physical model. So, technically, everything that Shuntaro Furukawa is saying here adds up. It's just being framed in a way where it's not really conveying any information about Switch 2 in 2024. But like I said, I didn't want to focus on the rumors, but I'm pointing this out because a lot of people have interpreted this to mean that Switch 2 isn't happening. But it goes beyond that. So during Nintendo's financial briefing, we got a lot of different charts and pieces of information, and there are some very positive things said about Switch success. And part of that is just first-party sales. Here, according to this graph, you can see that first-party software sales are doing really well. They're doing better than the last few years. This is the second best year ever in terms of software sales outside of 2020, which was the COVID year where we saw a significant spike in software sales because people needed games to play while they were at home quarantining. So with Switch having such strong software sales, that's leading people to think that Nintendo wants to continue to push these strong software sales. We've even seen that Nintendo has reached over 38 million members for Nintendo Switch Online. Every year, they are building their online base, they are increasing that cash flow, those passive income from all their online members. And in this image right here, they talk about how they have strong plans for Switch moving forward. Nintendo Switch will enter its 8th year, new titles will continue to be released, and they are going to maintain and expand a user engagement with Nintendo Switch maintaining business momentum. So these strong software sales, this growing online subscription base, Nintendo wants to continue that, and here they're talking about Switch entering its 8th year where they will continue to release games for the system and continue to push this system. So with all of this in mind, in conjunction with what President Shuntaro Furukawa said about the Switch 2 rumors, Many are thinking, yeah, Switch 2 is not happening next year. But this is where I start to come in with my counter arguments. I technically already mentioned that everything said by Shunto Furukawa doesn't deconfirm Switch 2, it just doesn't confirm it either. But when it comes to all this great information about Switch doing so well and all this momentum and Nintendo wanting to push that momentum, none of that deconfirms Switch 2 either. Let's take a look at the Nintendo 3DS. The Nintendo 3DS was receiving support from Nintendo, still getting published Nintendo titles in 2017 when Switch came out, in 2018 while Switch was thriving, and into 2019 as well when Switch was really taking off. There was a couple years, more than a couple years, where 3DS was well supported and sold. We even got a new 2DS XL revision announcement during the Switch life cycle to support this older system, this older platform, and to gain as much success and momentum as possible before they had to finish it up and discontinue the hardware. The 3DS came out early 2011, but there were games coming out early 2019. That's 8 years of support. So when Nintendo's talking about Switch entering its 8th year, we're not even at the point where the 3DS was at yet. And the Switch is an even more successful system, so I am thinking that Switch will be supported even longer than 3DS, perhaps by a year. But based off how Nintendo handled 3DS, if Switch is supported until 2026 with new releases, that will be fine and that would make sense with Switch 2 coming out in 2024. But let's take a look at this sales data here. Here we can see the sales in billions of yen, and we look at fiscal year 2023, Q1 to Q2, how much they made. And then here, how much more they made in fiscal year 2024, Q1 to Q2, plus 21.2%. And a lot of people are talking about how sales are even better now, so why would Nintendo want to come out with a new system to ruin those sales? Well, this is a little misleading. Yes, sales are better, but they're better for certain reasons. So take a look at mobile, IP-related income, etc. This includes the Mario Bros. Movie. Notice how they had a substantial increase of plus 133.3%. They more than doubled. Why? Because the Mario Bros. Movie came out and was the second greatest, most successful animated movie of all time in the box office, which is why we're seeing this significant gain in net sales here. But then you might say, well, just looking at their video game sales, they still were up 16.7%. Yep, they were. But there's a reason for that as well. A little game known as Tears of the Kingdom that up to this point has sold 19.5 million units, nearly 20 million. And this is a big reason why we saw such a significant spike in sales because of Zelda. This came out in May, but also its OLED edition came out in April, which would also help hardware sales on top of that, which is why we saw the spike in the first part of this fiscal year, which is where people are saying, oh, sales are better than last year, because we got a Mario Bros. Movie and Tears of the Kingdom, two things that are huge releases that we've been anticipating for a very, very long time. Even here in this chart, we see Nintendo pointing out that the Mario Bros. Movie positively impacted Mario revenue. 1.3 times year on year, these Mario games were selling better because of the Mario Bros. Movie. And with these Mario mobile games, the same can be said, but even more so, 1.4 times. So the Mario Movie and Tears of the Kingdom are the reason why we've seen this spike. But that's what it is, a spike. It is going to go back down. Something that's also come out from Nintendo's financial briefing, they did increase their expectations for software sales by 5 million, which is fantastic. But their hardware sales, their expectation of hitting 15 million, have stayed the same. So basically, yes, the Mario Movie and Tears of the Kingdom perform better than Nintendo expected, and as a result, they have increased their forecasts here. The Mario Movie is boosting Mario sales, Tears of the Kingdom is selling better than expected, so they've increased their forecast for software sales by 5 million. But hardware has stayed the same. And when we take a look at just the annual sales for Switch hardware, so looking here, this was just the first few weeks of Switch. It came out at the beginning of March, and the fiscal year ends at the end of March, so there was just 2.74 million for those first couple weeks. But that first full year, they sold 15 million. Then the second full year, 16.95 million. So there's an upward trajectory here. And then for the next fiscal year, 21. Fantastic. But then most of this time right here is 2020 during the pandemic period where people had to quarantine and buy a whole bunch of games and hardware. We saw a significant spike. This was the peak of Nintendo Switch. This rounds up to 29 million. But then the next year, we start to see a dip downwards, 23. That's fine. This is post-pandemic year, so that's okay. But there is a little bit of a downward trend. Because the next year, if I round up, 18 million. And now we're seeing them expecting 15 million in sales. So 1 year going downwards, 2 years going downwards, and now we're looking at a third year going downwards. Nintendo's not going to reverse the trajectory here. It's getting slower and slower. And typically, by the second year, when a Nintendo system is showing declining sales from a hardware perspective, Nintendo makes an announcement for their next hardware. However, the Nintendo of today likes to announce things shortly before release, not a year and a half before release, at least when it comes to hardware. Another sign here, taking a look at strong software sales of publishers' titles. So this is third-party games selling on Switch. It's gotten strong, really strong. We look at the last few fiscal years, it was fantastic. This fiscal year 2021, 230 million. Fiscal year 2022, 235 million. But you'll notice that the past fiscal year, we've seen a significant dip. More than 20 million in software sales in a decline. And that matters. If third-party sales start to decline, third parties are going to want to see new hardware. And we're already starting to see that decline here. But now on to the point, the big point here. It's been made clear that yes, hardware sales are still going downwards. And while there have been some positive points this year, those are spikes that cannot be maintained. So in the Q&A, there is a question that's asked, and I'll just read the last part here. Lastly, Nintendo Switch sales from January to March of this year were not particularly strong, but sales began growing again in April. What do you make of that? And this is them alluding to the spike, but beforehand, it was pretty bad. And I'm just going to skip to this part here from Furukawa that is what I'm ultimately getting at with the strong hint. However, considering the outlook for Nintendo Switch, we do not think it will be easy for sales to grow on a year-to-year basis, especially for the hardware, since it has entered its 7th year. This is something we've anticipated from the beginning of this fiscal year and has not changed. In order to achieve our full year plan, it will be essential for us in the third quarter with the holiday season and beyond to grow software sales by diligently supporting each title, both new and previously released, and in hardware to work to turn the demand for additional consoles and the new demand for consoles into actual purchases. So this here is the big point. This here tells us, in my opinion, that Switch 2 is coming out next year. You might ask why. Well, Nintendo is saying that they expected this. They're saying it will not be easy for them to grow sales year to year. You don't just say that. And here they're saying especially for the hardware, since it's entered its 7th year. This is all according to plan, this is all what they've expected. But they are doing everything they can for this holiday to push sales as much as possible just to meet demand. And with this plan in mind, Nintendo will likely, obviously hindsight's 2020 now based on everything we've seen, but it's been made clear that Nintendo does not want to do anything to hurt the hardware sales for this holiday, because they're trying to push it as much as possible to maintain momentum going into next year, where they're going to come out with Switch 2. If Nintendo's telling their investors that they can't increase hardware sales, and that they're doing everything they can to just maintain it for now, and it's been going down year by year by year, what does it say about next year? That they're going to have a 4th year in a row where it's dropping in hardware sales? That doesn't make any sense. And there's not going to be a Tears of the Kingdom or a Mario Bros. Movie coming out next year to give them significant spikes. They need the next big thing. And that's not Mario vs. Donkey Kong or Princess Peach Showtime. Those will be fine releases, but they need something far more substantial if they want to maintain a similar level of success But it's not even just maintaining a similar level of success, because they are going to push the Switch as much as they can, but as I explained earlier, it will become a secondary system for a few years. There will still be games coming, but they're going to want to transition over with the next big thing and start building that up so it can become Nintendo's primary source of sales. But if you don't believe me, that's totally fine. We'll see what happens. Next year is next year, and we're halfway through November already, so the time is coming. And it's soon. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andres Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.